Weezer, are they slop or not? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to figure out today. Now, we're going to start to figure this out. Oh my God, I dropped my marker, but it's okay. Michael Vsauce here. Okay, what is slop? We need to define slop, which we have this little chart for. Then we're going to define how to detect slop. Then we're going to say how much is slop of the artist Weezer. How much are Weezer even talented, which is another thing people say, oh, Weezer are slop, or they're rock, or they're pop, or they're punk. Well, they actually are throwing in, are they even talented, which is different from, is their music good, right? Not related, but different. And then finally, if they are slop or not, and we're going to explain why you're probably going to agree is going to be my guess on this one. So let's take a look right here. What is slop? This is the key question for today. Weezer. So here's the music matrix. And what we're going to look at is up here, we first look at the energy level, perceived and physical, energy and or intensity of the music of a song. For any given song, we can figure out if it is slop, it's in the slop zone, or if it is in the rock and pop zone. When anything is sufficiently good, if a song is sufficiently catchy, if it gets at least a 7 out of 10 on catchiness, people just call it rock and or pop. Though, let's say you take a Metallica song, but you make it really catchy, it is still a metal song, but now it is a rock and metal song. You add as you go across the slop line, you gain, it's like the mother's maiden name, right? You gain the last name of your dad, right? Your mom does when she gets married to him. Anyways, that tends to be in Western society. Anyways, so energy, we're going to go up for a song, and then we're going to go over, and we're going to see where it lands. But now you say, okay, well, how do we determine catchiness? Energy is pretty easy because you can see, do people get more energy? Do people mosh? Do people dance, right? This tends to be where metal lies in terms of energy, punk, indie, and then jazz, blues, country, classical, etc. is down here in the low energy rank. So now we move on to the second of the 4 major questions, which is how do we determine slop? Where is our slop detector? Connor, by golly, by gosh, how do I know if it's slop or not? Now, many things go into if something lacks catchiness, which is inherently what defines slop is a lack of catchiness. Is lack of catchiness, what the flip is happening here? Is this friggin' shifting, sliding, slopping? Anyways, lack of catchiness is what defines slop. How do we tell if something is catchy or not? We looked at the major variable that tells us if something can physically not be catchy or if it physically can be catchy, which is how predictable it is, right? So everything over here in terms of catchiness in this dud zone, this is slop, this is okay, this is a hit quality song, and this is a smash hit quality song. A song can be a smash hit quality without ever actually becoming a hit. If Hey Jude by the Beatles was released by a no-name band and no one ever heard it, it would not have become a hit in society, but though the quality of the song still would have been a hit quality song. So now, if we look here, predictability, if something's too corny, it can't be anything but a dud. And if it's completely incoherent, it can only be slop. So you need to be somewhere in the money zone. You can't be in either of these slop zones. You've got to be somewhat balanced and or zany, something between Back in Black and Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. But even then, you can still end up in the slop zone. You can still end up in the mid-school, and you can be a chance at a hit and a very small chance to smash hit. So now let's actually look at Weezer in particular. Now that we know how to detect slop, let's see how much is there and can we cure the patient of slopitis? Once you've contracted slop, is it permanent? Can we get rid of it? Is it terminal? Is the patient dying of slopitis? Now let's look at Weezer. You can see Weezer is one of the examples of the catalog right here. When we're looking at the slop concentration index, we're trying to look at what is the amount of slop, right? So a great example for this is something like David Bowie. David Bowie has a lot of hits, but relative to the rest of his catalog, he has mostly slop. David Bowie's catalog is a lot of slop down here, barely any B-sides or mid, and mostly there's very few hits relative to the total amount. He's put out like 800 million songs, most of which are total garbage, and then there's 10 really, really good songs, and the rest is total garbage. Now, if we look at someone like Motorhead or Slayer, for example, they have a lot of 4 to 6 or 4 to 7 quality, right? These things are not that catchy, but they're catchy enough that the fans will like it. So on average, this is still listenable and enjoyable music if you're not being too picky and it's in the background and you're having a good time and you're not focusing too hard or being too persnickety. If you already like the band, you're going to get way more mileage out of this than you are David Bowie. So this is why looking at the relative ratio, right? So if someone says Motorhead is slop, you're like, well, maybe, but what does that even mean? Because then David Bowie's more slop. So is it the top 10 songs we're looking at? Right? What are we looking at? So here with Weezer, though, Weezer is a critical example of what I like to call the hit or quit, not for OnlyFans, not a less than 50-50 or classic or a one-hit wonder. Weezer is it's entirely hits. The songs are freaking incredible quality, and they're super catchy. They're great. They're not just like good for fans. Like if you hear they're all songs that could turn you into fans of the band. But then there is also a very large portion that is completely unlistenable. There's pretty much no in between. Even if you take something like the White Album or Malderot, which are albums that are typically not seen as like the best albums by Weezer, you can find really good quality songs on there, and then you can find total garbage on there, and there's no in between. And so Rivers Cuomo, like you could say a mad genius, right? You could say with Queen and some of these other bands, they have either really great hit songs or they have total garbage. They don't really have much in between. And you can think about that. Do you think Weezer and David Bowie, do you think David Bowie and Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, the main songwriter, guitarist, yada, 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 do you think they operate and produce music from the same way? They don't. Rivers does everything himself, and so he either has a mad spurt of genius and totally commits to it, or he committed to something and it turns out poorly. But that's how he works, right? Versus someone like Motorhead, I know I'm jumping around, they just have a basic formula, a basic template. They write some new words, some new lyrics, some new things that are fun for the song, but mostly it's the same kind of drum beat. It's the same sort of riffs. You could kind of AI predict a lot of it, but it's the quirkiness of they pick a formula, they do it. Weezer picks something big and commits to it and goes all in on it. Sometimes it either goes big or goes home, right? These guys, it's kind of the same. You know what you're getting. Right now with David Bowie, he doesn't actually write most of the stuff. He brings in other musicians. Pretty much every album, he brings in a new crew of people. If you look back in his history, or every 2 albums, he'd bring in a new group of people that were really good and be like, let's write a record together. And sometimes it'd be great stuff, and most of the time it'd be garbage. Now, let's get to the next part, which is, are they even good? Now, Weezer, this is where it gets tricky too, is are they even good? Well, are they talented? And you might disagree, you might agree. So let's look here. We're going to break down, there are the 3 talent areas: brand, musicianship, songwriting. Weezer, I think, green means good, yellow means okay, red means bad. I think Weezer is good on songwriting, good on live show, good on lyrics, good on chords, melodies, riffs, tones, guitar solos. They get a green overall for that. So they are talented in terms of songwriting. We're going to look at the vibe, skill, and everything in the musicianship. I think they are green as well. They have a very unique skill, vibe, everything. They get green. Logos, merch, aesthetic, historical impact, present impact, everything. I'm going to give them a green in that area. Weezer is normally they'd say a 3-quadrant band. Some people just care about brand. They just care about, are they big in society? Is there a good t-shirt, right? This is the people who have the Guns N' Roses t-shirt from Walmart, right? For those people who don't listen to the music but like the t-shirt, they're going to like Weezer. Now, for the people who like musicianship, who don't care about songwriting, who just play their instruments, play guitar, play bass, they're going to find tons of great bass parts to learn. They're going to find maybe not as many keyboard parts, but they're going to find a ton of fun guitar parts and singing parts and different things to learn from that band. They're going to say this band is great and talented. Now, the people who just like catchy songs are going to say Weezer are freaking great and talented. So now we're tallying up. We're getting to the final board. You're about to see this in a second. I'm going to flip it over. Weezer, just for reference, are talented in all 3 of the areas. You know, in filmmaking, they would say when a movie appeals to all the major audiences, it's a 4-quadrant film, as if there's 4 different types of people who will disagree on whether a movie is good, bad, etc. And when a movie pleases all 4 of those people, it is pretty unanimous that everyone's going to like it, everyone's going to want to go see it. Think something like Jurassic Park, where if it's got a good story and it's got big spectacle, it's got stuff for people who like romance because it's got a love story, it's got all of these things. Now, likewise, Weezer, they are a 3-quadrant band. They have musicianship, they have songs, they have brand, but they have this catalog that looks like this, where there is kind of a lot of slop on one side, but they are low on controversy because they please everyone. Now, the last thing we want to look at is, what are my top 10 songs? Because most people, they don't think, what is the top songs like we talked about earlier, or what is the average across the catalog? They think, what are the top songs I think of when I think about David Bowie, and what are the top songs I think about when I think about Motorhead? And I go, oh, those top David Bowie songs are on average 2 points more catchy than the Motorhead songs, so David Bowie's better, right? Now, if you're just someone who cares about energy and getting the drug of adrenaline going when you're trying to run for a marathon or get really amped up for a party, then you don't care. You say Motorhead's higher up here, David Bowie's down here. Motorhead's better, right? Now, if you're one of those 4-quadrant people, you only care about the brand, you're kind of split, but you might go, Motorhead's got a cooler brand, right? And so that's where we get down to this thing. Now, I'm going to say, what are my 10 songs for Weezer? This is where you might agree or disagree. I'm going to see if they rock or not. Buddy Holly, 10 on catchiness, 7 on energy. Island in the Sun, Undone, Say It Ain't So. Beverly Hills, Hash Pipe. What is that one? Troublemaker. My name is Jonas. I just threw out the love of my dreams. Get You. I put them at a 6.6 on energy, which makes about sense. A little bit higher on the punk scale. For some of you, they might get here, but they really do. They're a little bit in between this punk and indie zone. This is where a lot of 2000s radio music seems to be. A lot of most popular rock bands seem to be here because anything above an 8 tends to put off a lot of people, a lot of normies at the store listening to music over a speaker, and anything under here tends to put people into frickin' sleep, even if it's catchy. Now, like Fly Me to the Moon, think Frank Sinatra, he's low energy, but also really catchy. So he's here in pop, and jazz. Jazz crosses over, gets added with pop/jazz. But if you're to see here, Weezer is a 6.6 right about here. And for you, it might be a little bit lower. But, oh my God, I'm freaking breaking my board here. I'm breaking my board for you. I'm breaking my back just to know your name. 6.6, and then we cross over to a 9 out of 10 on catchiness overall. That puts us over here firmly in the rock zone. Though you could argue that Weezer, when they dip down into lower energy songs with, let me look for a song that has a lower energy. Island in the Sun is clearly a pop song, right? It's in this higher kind of medium energy of indie, especially with a guitar solo in there, with some distortion, some nice things going on. So that's what I think. What do you think? Do you agree, disagree? Likewise, I kind of got to use the restroom right now. I'll be back for the next video. I'll see you there. Bye-bye.